Scottish Glaswegian mentality of just getting slaughtered when I'm a 3-year-old child.
Kidnap me and you just put me in the chair and you're like, here, you're fucking doing a podcast right now.
They call me Fridge when I was young.
Corner watching our fucking soap operas and I'm in my room just putting on like a Spider-Man voice. It sounds insane.
Hello everyone, we are here with the Glasgow International Comedy Festival today at the world famous King's Theatre. I'm here talking to my pal, Dean T. Beirne.
How you doing, Darren? Good to see you again.
It's good to see you as well, mate. This is a more professional setting than my pal's loft doing a podcast. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I enjoyed your pal's loft. Like, you know, I've got some great memories of that place. You kidnapped me and you just put me in the chair and you're like, here, you're fucking doing a podcast right now. This is a slightly more formal setting, you know, but I appreciate that you've went for it and you've upgraded it.
Yeah. How does it feel to be inside this amazing theatre nearly a year after you were in the final of the BBC Comedy New Talent Awards?
It feels like proper nostalgic in a way because like that was the biggest gig of my career and I felt so much pressure going into that gig and I felt like even more pressure after it because it was like, what do you do next? And then just from this year, I've been building up my set a little bit better, getting more weekend work, working towards like doing my own solo show. It's like, I'm glad that gig happened when it did because it gave me the confidence to just like keep going and knowing that I had like the backing of a lot of the Scottish comedy scene, like yourselves and like everyone that we'd work with was just a really touching moment for me.
Amazing, mate. And does it feel like a year since then?
No, absolutely not. I still feel like the same goofball from last year.
So I know that you've not been doing stand-up for that long and what you've achieved so far has been amazing, but when did you realise that you might be funny?
I think from like, probably you'll have seen this too, like from growing up, or never feeling like you fit in, like when you're around your group of friends and stuff, maybe at school or something, you were always making like jokes to try and cut the nerves and the tension out of a situation. And I was always doing that just because it felt like that was how you sort of diffused the tension in something and kind of got a little bit of control back. And when I realized like I was the funny one in my friend group, I never had the confidence to do stand-up, I think, until like many years later, because like the years before I started stand-up, I was agoraphobic. I didn't want to leave the house. I was terrified of like even interacting with people. But then COVID happened and I thought if I don't at least give this a go, then I'm going to regret it.
Yeah.
Went out, did stand-up, thankfully met a really good group of comedians that we've all come up with together and now we're here in the King's Theatre, so I think I made a good choice.
Amazing, mate.
Yeah, what about yourself? Like, when did you know like you were funny? Because you've always been like naturally funny to me. Like I can have any conversation with you and I'll be pissing myself.
Well, thank you very much. That's very kind. I think I was similar to you, mate. I think when I was in school, I wasn't very good when I was in school. And anytime I get into trouble with teachers and stuff for failing, I just kind of try to always break the ice with making them laugh. So I remember reading an old report card the other day, and it actually said in the report card, Darren's very funny, but he needs to...
But this is a history class.
Yeah, yeah. He needs to work in class. So that was nice.
Right.
Yeah.
Were you always like that in like friend groups as well? Like always being the one that was cracking jokes?
Do you know, I never thought that I was. It's only until recently my friends have said I've always been funny. I think having older family members, lots of uncles, older brothers, you know, that old Scottish Glaswegian mentality of just getting slaughtered when I'm a 3-year-old child. I think it thickened my skin. And loving comedy as well. I've always loved comedy. I've always been just obsessed with like old school comedy. So I think I just went from loving it to performing.
Were you always like watching it on TV or like back in the time when they released DVD specials and all that now? 'Cause it's all Netflix specials and like YouTube specials now. Like,
yeah.
I still remember like having an old Frankie Boyle DVD when I was about 12, watching that for the first time and thinking stand-up might be cool. Then I didn't start it until I was about 25.
So that's why you're broke, because you watched Frankie Boyle when you were 12.
Yeah, it's just that was a good like little bit of influence to get into it, but I reckon I've probably been influenced more by the people that I've met on the Scottish comedy circuit, and I include you in that as well. Like, do you mind the first time we met? Actually,
I can't remember.
it was a funny bunch at the stand. I think it might have been like
I remember.
first one that you had done, and I mind you had put out a thing on the forum saying, "Hey, I'm doing free tickets for comics if they want to come and check it out." And by the time I'd asked you, because I'm a lazy bastard, I was just like, I just gave away the last free ticket. And I just bought one instead, came down and met you, and it was a great night. And then after that, we just started chatting more and then gigging more together. And you've genuinely been like almost kind of like a mentor to me throughout the whole thing.
Thank you, mate.
I know I can always like talk to you whenever I'm going through a hard time in comedy, and like you're a very approachable and funny guy. So
Thank you very much.
yeah,
I must say, all the new comedians have gave me I appreciate comedy as well now. Like, it's just nice to be in a nice environment and watching everyone come up. This question can be quite common, but I don't think I've ever heard it from you before. Like, see, when you were younger, did you always want to be a stand-up comedian?
No, but I did always want to be a performer. Like, I was always the weird kid in school and that, so I'd be like at playtime just like playing pretend and stuff, but like really going for it, like sort of method acting, like Peter Pan sword fights in the thing. And I really wanted to be like an actor and stuff when I started out, or like a singer or something. I went through so many different like versions of that, like playing in bands when I was young. That gave me the confidence to like step out on stage. And then I wasn't allowed to do drama when I was in high school because like I don't know, for whatever reasons, like maybe I was shite, who fucking knows, but like no, I always wanted to be doing something and performing, because it felt like the time when I was most happiest was when I was working towards something creative and like that I was proud of, whether it was just like and I started off doing like fucking James Blunt covers and stuff when I was in like my school talent show. Comedy kind of found me. I think like I only considered it around COVID because it was the one type of performing I'd never really done.
Yeah.
And I knew I'd regret it if I didn't give it a go. And I seen like a bunch of Scottish comedians who I didn't know from like I think Jennings was one that I saw on YouTube pretty early on. I probably went to a couple of like dates at the stand just to get like a feel for it, and then took the chance on doing it myself. And 3 years later, here we are. You know.
Yeah.
Did you always want to be a stand-up when you were younger as well?
Do you know, I feel almost embarrassed in saying this, but right up until I was probably 17 or 18, I never knew you could be a stand-up. I lived such a sheltered life. So even when I watched Billy Connolly when I was younger, I just thought that was like...
So like a job interview you apply for? Like
No, but when I watched Billy Connolly, it's like, do you know how everybody's like, Billy's like your uncle or your pal? I always thought of Billy Connolly as like, oh, that's just like my uncle. I never thought that's a stand-up comedian. Same way. And then my next experience watching stand-up comedy was Eddie Murphy. So I never knew that you could get comedy clubs or comedians. And it wasn't until someone in my college class said, I think you're funny, you could do stand-up comedy. And I was like, where? How? And when I found out you could actually get comedy clubs and comedy nights, I felt like, you know the bit in Wizard of Oz when Dorothy's in black and white and then she just goes into like Technicolor? That's what I felt like. I was like, I can't believe I could do that.
I've always thought of you as a Dorothy, you know, now that you think about it. Like.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, I don't regret being like that when I was younger, because it's probably made me who I am today, but yeah, it's nice.
I kind of had the same thing. Like, I thought stand-up was this really unapproachable thing because the people I'd grown up watching on stand-up, they were all decked out in like suits and like dead classy and everything. And then looking at me, I'm like, I could never get to that. But then I think more recently, like a lot of younger guys started doing it, and it was like you've seen people like James Acaster or Larry Dean and that just going on with like a t-shirt and jeans and being wacky, and like I thought I've got t-shirts and jeans. I'm a little bit wacky. Maybe I could do this as well.
Yeah.
It's my clothing choices. That's what inspired me to be a comedian, man. It was So when did you start getting into stand-up? Like, how did you find it at the beginning versus, let's say, where you are now?
Well, I started off, like everyone, I started off not very good. I wasn't very confident. I had no drama experience whatsoever. So I did a couple of gigs I did my first ever gig when I was 18, and I was really bad. But I never did it again until I was 24. But I'm really grateful that from 18 until I was 24, all I did was watch comedy. I went to comedy clubs, the Stand Comedy Club in Glasgow, and I just became obsessed with stand-up comedy. And when I started doing it again, I felt like I actually respected it more. Because I thought, I did think, oh, I'm funny at my mate's party to 4 of my pals. I could be funny to 200 people in a comedy club. And I learned that lesson the hard way, big time. So, yes, I started doing it when I was 24. I got into a final of a competition when I was on my 50th gig. And then from there, I just started to get more gigs. And a lot of it was just confidence for me. Like, I was just a quiet, shy guy. And a lot of it was just learning on stage. I don't think anybody can teach you how to be funny. You have to just go through it.
Nah, not at all. You could learn like writing techniques and like how to do a setup punchline, but actually making a joke feel alive is a completely different skill.
Yeah. So I'd say I've been doing it since I've been 24, and I'm 37 now. That is insane.
That is maths. I'm not good at maths, but
would you say I'm a veteran?
I mean, compared to where I am, yeah, but I feel like if I call you a veteran, I'm just calling you old. Like,
yeah, I feel old. I mean, if I was a football player, I should be retiring right now.
So I know, like, you've got a great style where, like, I've watched you several times at, like, Blackfriars and, like, little new material nights and stuff, and you've got your bits that you know are, like, they work and everything, but what I really love about watching you is that you can go on and really just make an entire set out of just riffing something. And I'm curious to know, like, how does that process start, like, in your head? How do you go from, like, one joke to having, say, like, for example, a whole 20 about hammers and trainers, like what I've seen recently?
Well, I think it can be like a muscle memory. And also, I only joke about what I find funny. So I hope the audience love me tonight. So I'll try and adjust my humour to what I think they might find funny. I'll say what I want to make them laugh. And if they don't laugh, then that's all right, because someone else will at another gig.
Aye.
So I think that trying to be fearless, trying to be confident, and just trying to do things that make me laugh, because it does tickle me, the fact that I can maybe go and talk about protein yogurt for 40 minutes and just get a laugh out of it. I don't really overthink writing anymore. I keep a notepad beside my bed, because a lot of things come to me when I'm just about to fall asleep, or when I'm walking. I do a lot of voice recordings, but I don't sit down and be like, it's time to write. So even with themes, I know a lot of comedians have themes to their show, and there's recently there's a lot of maybe trauma attached to comedy, but I just try and keep it funny. I might talk about things like that might be traumatic, but it's not shoehorned into my show. I try to keep it natural.
You're not like trying to get sympathy out of it. You're thinking like, where's the funny in this?
And that's what I've seen with you when you talk about subjects in your life. How do you feel about writing?
It's because like I'm aware of all those, like, you know, everyone talks about, say, the cliche sad bit in a Fringe show. Being conscious of it kind of helps me with that, because I've always loved the way like storytelling works. Like I was that kid who would not only just buy, say, like a DVD or a Blu-ray of a movie, I would watch the special features for it because I was fascinated by like how like the sausage gets made essentially, and how like something starts off from just an idea and becomes like this thing that's almost timeless. Because see, if I've noticed that if you're doing a joke like maybe for the first time or something like that, and it sounds too scripted, like it doesn't feel alive, the audience can smell it right away, and it also throws you off with your delivery. It makes it stilted. So I was dead conscious of that when I started off. Like, I didn't originally start off doing foster care stuff. Like, I made a mistake in my first 8 months of just trying to second guess the audience and talk about what I thought they would find funny, and like, but not like in the intuitive way that you do it, like more like, I've heard a comedian do a joke like this, I'll try and like put my own spin on it, and it was always shite. But I started doing foster care stuff, and I was worried about initially me getting too much sympathy for it and not a laugh. So being conscious of that, like I tried to put a lot of jokes into it to make it funny. And also I think part of it is not just making it funny, but making it accessible, making it easy to talk about, like relaxing the audience in a way. Like Susie McCabe, I think, has a really great routine where she talks about like quite a difficult thing in her family, and she basically went through the structure of it, and it was like, so you start off by talking about something that's awful, and then you escalate the subject of that to being the hero all the way to making you the idiot. And by the end of that routine, like everyone in the room is really relaxed and they trust you, and then you can just go on with the rest of your set. I've always tried to put like that kind of mindset into whenever I'm writing about stuff that happened in foster care, because whilst it is like, it's an unexplored thing in stand-up, but I think then it's my job then not to make it feel after school specially, but to like bring them along for the journey and that kind of thing. And I like that challenge of it. Like when I first started doing foster care stuff, I used to get a lot of awes and like sympathy and stuff, but I couldn't blame the audience for that. That's on me. I've got to make sure that it's funny first, and then just maybe a little bit thoughtful afterwards. But you can't ever be going for like the thoughtful first. It needs to be funny first, you know?
Oh yeah. And plus, what I've found as well through experience is that I think it's really important not to get snobby about comedy, because if I'm standing in front of a crowd and I've got an opportunity to get a laugh, I'm taking that laugh. Like, I don't care what the joke is. Also, some of the most slapstick, silliest things I ever watched, like sometimes there's a movie called Tommy Boy, and it's Chris Farley falling down a hole. Just a fat guy falling down a hole. And it is the funniest thing I have ever watched in my life. Just this fat guy doing a forward roll down a hole. I'm like, that is up there with like Charlie Chaplin.
I like
that
Three
should be in
Stooges and that.
a museum of comedy. Like anytime I see something, just, you know, even like, remember like Shooting Stars when they used to hit themselves with pans and stuff, and it used to get that stupid sound effect?
You just unlocked a memory for me there.
Even Harry Hill, man. Bring back Harry Hill. I miss him. He's brilliant.
Oh yeah, he's fucking fantastic. Like you bring a lot of physicality to that as well. Like your jokes, like it's not just the writing of it and what you're saying, but like your facial expressions, your body language, I think adds a lot. Does that come just natural to you, or do you have to like think about where you're going to be moving in that on the stage?
I don't really think about it. I don't give it too much thought. I'll be thinking about it more doing a show at the Kings in March. But when it's
just doing panto moves everywhere just to fit in.
I'm like, oh no, I actually have to actually write a show now for the first time in 16 years. I can't just make mad faces for 90 minutes. But yeah.
I love your mad faces. It's a highlight. It's a highlight of scrolling through your TikTok sometimes.
No, thank you. So, see, when you're writing your show or a joke, or if you're doing a new 5 minutes, do you have a routine or a ritual to go about that?
I used to try and do the thing that I think authors do when Stephen King has a quote where he's like, if you want to be a great author, you have to write 6 pages every day, even if it's shite, just to like train your mind to write like that.
Did they say that though?
Yeah.
Even if it's shite.
He didn't say even if it's but
Day 6 pages, even if it's shite.
I mean,
Stephen King.
I've read the Tommy Knockers. He probably did say that. But nah, I used to think like that, like you had to set a time, sit down, write. But every time I was forcing myself to do that and forcing myself to try and write a joke, when I went to go test it, it never worked. Like the funniest stuff that I've come up with has been when I'm out, say, walking my dog or just walking down the street or anything like that, and an idea will come to my head, and I'll know where like the punchlines are in a way, and I'll write it down in my notes. I'll get somewhat of a structure to it just so I know how I'm saying it, how I get to each bit, and then do the rest of the writing when I'm on stage. Like an example, I think that Monopoly joke that has become like my golden goose whenever I do a stand-up show started off very differently. Like it used to be just the going to jail line was the big punchline, but that felt a little bit too dark. And then when I was working with some of the other comics that we've come up with together, and like I'm sure it was Daniel Petrie who threw me a tag saying like, oh, you should talk about the competing over housing. And now I do that as the first tag, gets a big laugh, and then it makes that line sing a lot better. So I think the best writing ritual comes from having the idea originate from yourself, but knowing that you can talk to comedians who you trust, who can bring out the funny in you and make a joke that you even like even better. So like I'm always, see when people like give me a tag or something after a show, I'm always loving it because it makes me think of the joke in a new perspective, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that does. It's fascinating. It's fascinating hearing other comedians talk about it.
Mm-hmm. So, of course, people not only know you as a great comedian, but they know you from Scot Squad as well, like the acting side of you. How did that kind of come about in your career? Because that was pretty early on when you started, wasn't it, that you got Bobby? Like,
yes.
What was that audition like?
Do you know, I can't remember what age I was, but I was young. It was a long time ago. The audition was amazing, and I feel very lucky that that was my first ever audition and I got a part, because I've had other auditions and other shows since, and it's been very stressful. But the Scot Squad audition was just so much fun, and I just applied an attitude to it of I'm not an actor. I love comedy. I'm very grateful for this chance. So I just thought, instead of being really nervous and ruining this experience through nerves, I'm going to walk into this room and treat it like a stand-up gig. So I was just trying to make the producers and the director and the other actors laugh, and it worked, and it changed my life. It pushed us up in the stand-up world, and I'll always be grateful for it. Do you know how you hear like actors like, you know, Screech for Saved by the Bell, like moaning?
I got paid so much money for it, but I had to wake up at 6.
That's not true. That is not true. 100. But, you know, see if I'm like 60 and somebody's like, you're that guy that's Bobby, it's not the worst thing in the world, is it?
Nah.
Plus, to be able to play, I'm aware that my stand-up comedy is very dark. Not offensive, but it's dark, it's different, it's surreal. There can be swearing involved. It's very much for over 18s. So see, to be a character like Bobby, it was very heartwarming, and just there was a lot of like grannies and grandas that loved the character. And I mean, Scot Squad's not been on the TV for a while now, but there was moments of like mums coming up to me with their kids and stuff, and I just thought that was really nice and really kind, and it opened doors for other things. It opened doors for Panto, which was just another world. And as a performer, it made me believe in myself, because I thought, oh, I could never do a Panto, or I could never think of standing on a stage and not saying something really dark or surreal. It made me kind of believe in myself. And it was just a really nice character that's always fun to play. And I'll always look back on that time in a really nice way. I probably wouldn't be doing the Kings in March if it wasn't for Scot Squad.
Did they write that character specifically for you, or did you was it a case of they had the idea for it and you brought a lot of like who he ended up being into the character?
Well, that's another strange thing that happened. So when you go through the audition, they give you 2 options. It says this on the email. You're either a police officer or a dafty. And I picked dafty. So I remember Joe Hewlett, the guy that created Scot Squad, said, you were so surreal and cartoonish that if we made you a police officer, it would just be silly. So we don't know if we can do that. And then a couple of weeks later, he told me that Joe said, we're going to make you a character that's a nuisance, and he's going to run into the station and he's going to be a pest towards a police officer. And then I went in with Joe and the team behind Scot Squad, and we created Bobby together. So there's a lot of things with Bobby that I just added from my own life. There's a comedian that used to call me Bobby Davro. No. What's his name? Bobby Dazzler. He used to always call me Bobby Dazzler, and I just found it funny. So I just took Bobby. And then there was other things, like my brother's boss used to call me Fridge when I was young. So there's an American football player called Fridge, and he's massive, right? The guy's like 30 stone. And see, when I was 10 years old, my brother's boss used to call me Fridge. And it just always stuck with me that I never found it offensive or hurtful.
You'd survive a nuclear war.
I always found it so funny. Like, he used to drive past me in the street and shout Fridge out the car. And when Joe was like, you've got a dog, what do you think you'd like to call him? I was like, Fridge. So I was just taking all the mad stuff that happened to my life. It wasn't hard. I'll tell you a funny story about the glasses as well. Like,
oh, yeah?
At the time I got Scot Squad, I was skint. I had no money whatsoever. And the thought of not wearing my glasses and trying to read a script was more nerve-wracking than doing the show. So I was like, why don't we keep them wearing glasses? Because glasses are funny. And they were just like, no, we don't want glasses. And I was like, no, we need glasses for comedy reasons. So the reason...
That's your rider for the show.
Yeah, so Bobby's glasses were my glasses. They weren't even prop. They weren't prop glasses. So... yeah, I'll always look back on it in a warm, nice feeling.
Do you think you'd ever revisit that character if the opportunity came around? Like, would there be, say, the Bobby Logan style spin-off show where it's just old man Bobby sitting about and he's still going in the police station?
Well, everybody else has got a spin-off apart from Bobby. So, not that I'm bitter or anything. I don't know. I mean, I would never, if they ever offered me it, which I doubt that it will happen, because I'm sure it would have happened by now. But if that ever came into my life, I'm sure I would embrace it.
Because it's the kind of character where, like, I think played in the wrong hands could come off as, like, very offensive and, like, stereotypically. But you brought, like, from what I've seen of Scot Squad, you brought this really, like, warm and empathetic feel to him that you smile whenever he comes on stage.
Yeah.
Or, like, not on stage, like, on set. Or...
that's the thing. I mean, so much time has passed, I can't really remember anything now. But I remember I was babysitting my nephew once, and when we were coming up with the Bobby stuff, I remember my nephew said something so silly to me that only a child would say. And there was so much, like, innocence attached to it that I just laughed. And I thought, I'm going to try to bring that mentality to the character than anything else that might be offensive. That I wouldn't have done anyway, because I feel like I'm a kind person. I wouldn't have done that. I don't think it would have been allowed anyway.
I want to see the Bobby spin-off show. Make that happen.
So I was actually in the crowd at the Kings that night to see you at the BBC Comedy Awards, and it was amazing to see a friend do so well. I think you should have won, by the way. But I'm just interested in thinking how you went about to apply for that, because I know that you were so early in the game. I know that it might have been nerve-wracking.
Well, I was thinking about it for the whole of that year, because honestly, I needed a distraction after, like that was the year my dad had passed, and I needed to just, like, this probably wasn't healthy looking back, but I kind of just threw myself into comedy because I didn't want to think about it. And when the BBC New Comedy Awards came around, me and a lot of other folk that we come up with, like Peter Bell and like Daniel and all that, wanted to do it as well. So we all did the heats together at the Fringe, and we just thought, like, no matter what happens to this, we're all friends. It's just a laugh. Let's just have fun and then focus on what we're doing for the Fringe this year. Got the call for the semi-finals 9 minutes before I was about to go on stage to play the Wizard of Oz. And I spent the entire of that performance just trying not to forget my lines. And once I like met the producers properly and we knew how we were going to go for it, I was instantly thinking, like, how do I do the best set possible that shows off who I am as a comic? And a lot of the foster care stuff and the Dubai stuff came from that. So for a lot of that time, I was thinking just like, how do I make the tightest, funniest 5 possible, and how do I make sure I deliver it really well? And when we did the semi-final, I was quite surprised that I'd won. I thought for sure that Daniel Petrie was going to win. And when they read out my name on the broadcast, my reaction is complete genuine, like absolute shock. And Susie and I think Larry were both there, and they gave me a lot of great advice about how to approach the final, because like big room, you know, before I'd ever done anything like this, I kind of thought I was a bit under the radar comedy wise and just like sort of quietly getting better on my own terms. But then knowing that you're going to be watched by like 10,000 people on BBC One, you kind of, a part of you goes like, okay, I need to step up my game here. So Susie recommended to me that I go and speak with Des McLean, and he helped me tighten my set out. He helped me get it to a much better place than it was. And even though I didn't win the final, I felt I did the best that I could have done at that time as a comedian, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. Like I look back on it with really fond memories. Like it felt almost like, it's going to sound a little bit sad, but I never really felt like I fit into the comedy industry until that happened. That felt like the comedy industry kind of like accepting you finally, and that knowing that I had the support of all yous and like other pros and stuff on the circuit just really warmed my heart, and it made me feel like, oh, I'm not just going out to do a TV gig, I'm doing a gig for my friends and my family, and that made it a lot easier.
It was a great night, and I can assure you all your friends were very proud of you. You done brilliant, and your dad would be proud of you as well.
That means a lot to me, man. Thank you. And of course, I'm so proud that it's happening. I can't believe it's happening. You are doing the King's Theatre for a solo show. I mind when you told me at Blackfriars, I just instantly gave you a big hug because I was so happy for you, and like I could just see you filling out this room, it being a great gig and everything. So how did you go from doing that to like building up a new, was it like a new hour or a solo show and like doing the Kings? Like how has that journey been so far for you?
It's been really surreal, but I've also worked very hard for this chance, and I'm very grateful that the chance was given to me. And I've went through, it's really tough being a stand-up comedian, and that's why I try to be supportive to new people, because I know how hard it can be. And a chance like this will come for everybody that starts off one day. If you work hard enough and you're funny, a chance like that will come. Same with things like Scot Squad and all that. It will absolutely come. You just need to take it. I've went through a lot of stressful times and sacrifice to get to this moment, and I'm going to work really hard. And when it comes to the night of the Kings, I'm just going to really enjoy it. There's not going to be any pressure. I've just worked. I've went through a lot of strange gigs and just sacrifices and moments of like questioning, is this the right thing? And having family members that, you know, as soon as something happens, they're like, you should have got a trade. I told you. I'm like, what's that got to do with the buses being cancelled? So I feel like the people that have supported me and been very caring and loving will be there, and it will be a celebration. It's very surreal. I feel so grateful that I'm in a beautiful theatre like this. I almost feel like I'm a cheat, or I'm just looking at some of the people that have been here.
Absolutely not a cheat. Like,
but Laurence Olivier's been here, mate. How can you go for Laurence Olivier to...
you're going to just come out as Othello on the stage? Like...
So the history of this place is, I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to comedy history, and I'm just so grateful. It's kind of, I'm at the stage now as well. If I do this show and it's a good show, and then say for instance I stop doing comedy, I'll die happy. I know that might be a bit intense, but I think I'd be like mission accomplished.
One thing I've really admired about you actually is how resilient you are. Like, we both know, like, you had challenges facing up doing like a big solo show, and like, I mean, I don't know if we can get really into this like too much, but like seeing you rise to those challenges and like not give up has honestly been very inspiring, and I can't wait to see you smash this venue next year.
Thank you, and a lot of it's got to do with the team at the Glasgow Comedy Festival and the team at the Kings as well. See, when you're working with people that actually want to support you, and Sarah and Jay that are helping me, they've always helped me since I've been an open spot, an 18-year-old open spot, till I'm a 37-year-old professional comedian. They've always had my back and always been so kind. When you're working with people that love comedy, that is what a difference that is. So yeah, I'm buzzing, and I need to grass you in as well. So I was really nervous about selling the show, and when I put on shows like this, I'll always buy a ticket to see if the ticket link's working. I don't know why I do it. So the night of my show at the Glasgow Comedy Festival, it's Dean's birthday.
Yeah.
And I just gave him the ticket.
Yeah.
So that's costing me money. I mean, happy birthday. Happy birthday, but that's costing me money.
I'll get you dinner or something beforehand or after it. Like that.
So there you go. Happy birthday, mate.
Thank you. I'm 21 for the 9th time today.
So this is really exciting times for you, mate. It's your first time at the Glasgow Comedy Festival. You've done your first show, and you've sold it out. How do you feel about that?
It's similar to how I felt doing the New Comedy Awards. Like, I've never gone for an opportunity in stand-up if I don't know in my heart that I'm ready for it. And I'm very honest with myself about that. Like, when I started out, there were times where I was like, I don't think I'm good enough to try and do a trial spot at this club yet. I don't think I'm good enough to try and do this spot yet. But I worked towards those goals, and I always had the idea for what the show would be since I started, like what the story of it would be, because I've always been fascinated by storytelling and how we think about that, how it like almost impacts your life, essentially. So knowing that my life as a stand-up show already sounds like a Charles Dickens novel, like a kid starting off in foster care, going all the way to Dubai and then coming back here and finding himself along the way, I thought like, oh, I could use that as like almost a hero's journey thing. And that made it a lot easier to write it and get confident with it, because I always have this thing with solo shows, like there's people talk about the sad bit a lot, but what I want to do for it is not think of it as like the sad bit of a show where everything gets sad. Think of it more as like the sincere bit, and keep like a really sincere tone throughout, because I get what people mean when they're talking about the sad bit in a comedy show. It's like, because most of them will be like, it'll be 40 minutes of regular stand-up that's unrelated, and then 40 minutes in someone's dad dies, and it's like, it can be a bit jarring because they've not really earned the emotion of that yet. So being conscious of that going in, when I wrote Fated to Pretend, I thought like, if I use the hero's journey here to talk about what my life is like, because even if people don't know what the hero's journey is specifically, you've seen a Disney movie in your life and they all use that structure. So you can almost kind of make fun of it as well, because if you met somebody who thought that because, because I struggled at the start of my life, it means I'm destined for greatness, they would be probably the most insufferable person that you'd ever talk to. So being conscious of that going into it, and making sure like it's a really fun show to just take people on a journey with, and give them permission to laugh at all the stupid stuff I've done trying to fit in, and like with all that, I'm feeling really excited about it. When I sold the show out before the end of last year, right, it just felt like I'd gone up a level, and getting to do it a second time was really exciting. And the best part of it is I've got people that I've come up with doing the opening spots for me. So it's like we've all come up together. So it feels very full circle, and I'm looking forward to seeing that show evolve and get better as I keep performing it. So I'm very proud of it.
That's nice. And you've got an extra date added now?
At Van Winkle at the Barrowlands. It's I've got my boy Jack Trainer opening for that. That's going to be fantastic. Like I'm really proud of the show. I'm also curious about your show because this is just like a me thing. I'm always really interested into why people choose the titles and stuff that they show. So yours is called "My Name is Darren Connell and This Is My Self-Tape." I've done a few self-tapes in my time. Is that going to like play into the show at all? Is it like a meta-y kind of thing? Like what made you choose that as the name?
I don't want to give too much of the show away, but it is definitely that will be involved. When you do acting during the pandemic, you couldn't go in for an audition, so you had to film a self-tape, and it was just, self-tapes are horrible. During the pandemic, I was living with my family, never had a space to film my stuff, so I was in a bedroom that I grew up in as a child, trying to do this audition, filming a self-tape on my mobile phone. I got a little bit bitter, experienced depression, was getting angry at the industry, and a lot of it was just, it's okay to feel like that. I was living through a pandemic, that's all right. And now I don't have an agent and I'm not getting self-tapes. I feel like the show might be a self-tape. So it's going to be really nice, and I won't give too much away.
I love the idea of you trying to do a self-tape while living with your family. They're just bursting in while you're halfway through To Be or Not to Be.
My dad saying, "How come you've not got another job? Hurry up." You hear the telly, because my mum and dad are in their 70s and they're half deaf. So you can hear the telly in the background. I'm like, "Dad, can you turn that down? This job could literally get me 10 grand. You should have got a trade."
I've done things like that as well for voice acting, and see, like, while my mum's in the corner watching her fucking soap operas and I'm in my room just putting on like a Spider-Man voice, it sounds insane.
So I know that you do drama and you've had some acting work, you do voice work and stuff. Very talented stand-up comedian. Do you feel like there's a difference between those worlds, or are they the same?
I think there's a lot of similarities, but they are not the same. Like, I think when you're acting, you're almost trying to not essentially bring the audience in, because you don't want them to see you. You want them to see the character. So it's always at somewhat of like an arm's distance. And I used to think that to be a great actor, you had to like Daniel Day-Lewis it. You had to like mentally become the character. And I've learned from my current acting shooter now, shout out Stephen Cafferty, you don't want to let yourself become a character. You're the vessel for the character, essentially. And I learned that when I was doing Iago for one of my graded unit pieces. And if I tried to get into the mindset of a character like Iago, it would mentally screw me up, because that's like an embittered, jealous, racist guy, and you don't want to be able to like let those thoughts into your head, because it kind of taught me a thing, really, where it was like, I realized I had some of those like jealous tendencies, and like, how do you deal with that? So with acting, I think it's best to like, you need to do your research, obviously. You need to understand the character. You need to know what you're doing with it. But with comedy, I think it's a lot more about showing them who you are and kind of bringing an audience along for a journey. So there are similarities with it. Like, there's things I've learned in acting, like beat changes, thought tracking, and just like applied that to my set to make them feel more alive. But you know what it's like yourself. Like, see if you watch a stand-up set that feels too actory, the audience can kind of smell it. Because like stand-up has to, I think in my opinion at least, has to feel very natural and just like you're having a chat with a crowd. Whereas like acting is becoming somebody else, essentially. Like, do you find there's a lot of similarities with it?
They're different, but it's a nice different. Like, whenever I get an acting gig, I really enjoy it. It seems to be, some of the things that I've worked on is very well-oiled, structured machines. Even panto, it's just, you know, you're up at 7, you have your breakfast, shower, shave, costume, show, lunch, walk, sleep, then you're back into another show. I like that kind of structure to a job. Stand-up can be a little bit lonely, I think, especially when you've been doing it for so long. When I get an acting gig, you feel like you're part of a team. But when I do stand-up, sometimes I'm in Aberdeen on a Thursday by myself, and I'm like, man, this is grim.
So grey.
But it's good. It's totally a different buzz as well. You get a buzz from. I'd like to do more acting. It's good fun. It is good fun.
I could see you doing like Shakespeare stuff. Like I've mentioned this to you before. Like I could see you being like a Shakespearean character.
Well, you need help. That's what you need.
I want to see you as Hamlet. I need to see Darren Connell as Hamlet, like before I die. We need to make that happen.
Bamlet. That was a cheap. See what I'm saying about cheap laughs? You've got to go for a cheap laugh, mate.
100%. I'm not going to forget that for the rest of the day.
Well, Dean, thank you very much for talking to me today. This has been really nice to just get a catch up with you. I'm buzzing to see you at the Glasgow Comedy Festival for the first solo show. I remember that buzz when I was a youngster. So all the best, mate, and I'm glad we spoke today.
And likewise, it's been great to see you. It feels like I've not seen you in ages, so it's been a really fun wee catch up, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at the Kings, man. Like I'm going to be so proud watching you. It's going to be like watching my big brother.
Thank
doing
you.
Stand-up,
Even though I bought the ticket.
Even though you bought the ticket,
all right.
like a birthday present. You know? It's been an absolute
Cheers,
pleasure,
mate.
mate. Thank you.
Thank you.